Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Problem with Humanity, written by Plastic Finish 1968. There aren't many sapient species as physically large as a human. Some are, but only one, however, is bigger, and they come from a Deathworld too. The rating system for Deathworlds is contentious. To be honest, it's more cloud-based than how long can you stand on the planet before falling rocks, predatory or parasitic life forms, radiation, heat cold, pathogens, etc. kill you. Some rating systems have humans living on a deadlier planet, but some of the more science-based systems have the Tyrothians living on a harsher system. Clout really does play a role though. Most Tyrothians have void humans at bars due to said clout, not the Galapostern. He eyed the humans across the bar. He was sitting alone in the United Continents of Terra UCT jacket. Most people of all backgrounds avoid a human in uniform. But no, to him, that was an invitation. A low chuckle came from the beast as he spoke. His voice sounded like a rock slide in a canyon. "Oh, here, a human!" He looked around at the bar to gauge the atmosphere, more so to see if he would be thrown out for pursuing any more trouble. No one stood up, but heads did turn. Galapostern took this as a hint to continue. "The big talkers, the we will rockers. Did you all know, despite all their talk and bravado, that of being anti-slavery, they have more slaves than anyone else?" At this, the Tyrothian's hands found a dart lying on a table. With a grunt, he spun and hurled it at a dartboard so hard it cracked the wall behind it and kicked up a plume of dust. When the dust cleared, his dart could be seen about 3 inches from perfect center. The human, however, didn't move. No one could even really tell if his eyes were even open under that hat. Instead, another bar patron stood up and grabbed a dart. He was half of the height of the Tyrothian. An equally small but confident voice came from the creature as he spoke. "The UCT is the only nation to have fought a war to end slavery." With a wild whip of the bonus arm, the dart flew true and hit the board just inside the previous dart. The fellow bar patron, satisfied with his shot, reclaimed his seat and continued drinking. Galapostern gripped another dart and lined up a shot. "Right, the slave-owning Galaxy Police here to save the day." He swung his arm, letting loose another cannon bolt of a shot that shook the wall again, this time even closer to the bullseye. Another patron stood, tall like the Tyrothian but thin. The creature had a long torso with many small arms unsuited for throwing, but he hefted the dart in one hand, then shifted it so that 5 of his many hands gripped the dart. Galapostern laughed and sneered, wondering what this patron could say. A robotic voice came from the translator. "When we ask humans to broker peace treaties as a neutral party, we can't get upset that they have an interest in keeping a peace when someone breaks the treaty." At this, the patron gripped the ground with 4 legs, like claws burrowing themselves into the floor, and began swinging his long body. Around and around his body swung until the resounding crack like a whip. The dart was let loose, hitting the board and sinking in deep, not too far from the bullseye. "Right, peace treaties." The voice grew deeper with anger. "I've never seen a weaker peace treaty in my life. So weak that when one Earth president was voted out," his claws mimed a human expression for quotes around the word voted, "and a different, older, corrupt one was put in his place, the demagogues were able to paraglide onto the surface of Jerusalem, murder everyone and make pleasure slaves of the women and children, then pretend to be victims. We are on the brink of the Third Galactic War, and I don't see the World Police stepping up to the plate this time." The lanky patron set down a final dart and returned to his stool, defeated. Many patrons expected a fight rather than an argument, and are now intrigued by more philosophical turn of events that took place. Eyes began returning to the human's table, but where the human had sat rested only his hat, a half-drunk bottle of alcohol, and a tip. "So he decided to flee. Smart!" Galliposton chuckled, but his laughter was cut short when the sound from grunting came from behind him. The humans pulling one by one on the darts embedded through the dartboard into the wall. The room sat in silence as he struggled. No one expected the scariest race to struggle to move darts another, less scary race embedded into the wall so casually. Eventually he did, and when he turned, everyone could see why. He was a she, not as physically strong or as fast, but scary all the same. "New game," she said. "This time, after each shot, the one with the least amount of points takes a shot. You first." She held up her hand over her opponent's darts. Galliposton eyed her carefully, then snatched the game pieces from her hand. "Humans, you know your borders. Females are forced upon, trying to get across your borders. Children are kidnapped by adults to appear as young families seeking a new home. Your border patrol don't even care to check who belongs to who anymore." He took the shot, swinging wildly and without aim. The dartboard took the hit as the dart sank in near the edge of the black mark. The human took a shot of whiskey, then lined up a shot. With a grace, she let loose the dart, and rather than flying in a nearly straight line, hers arched up, and then back down, not landing far from the last dart, but on the red rather than the black. She was still down on points, so she took a second shot of whiskey and said, "Your turn." Galliposton expected some sort of retort. He was frustrated at the first, but then decided his argument won him a victory, so he continued. "Your race wars are legendary. No system could concern with the planet you hail from. Your police force targets those from other planets." He took his shot again, wildly off mark. His shot missed the board completely and embedded itself in the wooden frame. The bartender decided to get in on the fun when seeing the woman made no attempt to stand up for herself. Instead, she took a drink, then opted to close one eye, stick out her tongue, and pull her arm back, instead of engaging with his argument. The bartender spoke up. "If that were true, Earth wouldn't be the multicultural bastion, and the #1 job amongst neutralized citizens wouldn't be a Shh! I'm trying to concentrate." She bent her knees and jumped a little as she threw her second dart. Again, it was not a good shot, but it hit the board, which was enough of a victory for her as she threw her arms up and celebrated. "You drink now," she said slyly. She was almost cute the way she celebrated a terrible shot and rubbed Galliposton's nose in it. The Tyrothan stepped closer, staring almost directly down at her. "If a male human were here, we wouldn't be playing some silly game. He would stand up to me and face me man to man. And even if he did want to play this little charade, he would at least debate me." "I never said I wanted to debate," she said, eyeing him. "I said I wanted to play a game. Now drink." He walked back to the bar, grasped what shot in his oversized fist, and threw the whole thing down in his throat, glass and all. Then he made his way back in front of the dartboard and prepared his shot. His voice softened, and he spoke far quieter than before. "Your species is addicted to taking sides. You can't walk into a conflict without deciding to support one or the other. This addiction of yours has cost me everything. You were on the wrong side, and you killed my beloved. And it's only a matter of time until you pick sides again in this new conflict." Galliposton half-heartedly hefted his dart to eye level, then let it loose. Perfect center bullseye. The room was quiet as the human drank, then took a shot. It wasn't close, but she celebrated all the same for hitting the board. She took another shot of whiskey, then quietly gathered the darts once more, placed her hand on his back, and handed him his 3 darts. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. You're a good man. You wouldn't bring all this up if you didn't care. But you're right. If a man were here, he'd probably kick your butt. There are probably some women who would do that too with enough adrenaline. But that wasn't what you needed, is it? You needed to be heard. And I like to drink. Win-win." The hulking creature didn't seem as large as before. He plucked the 3 darts from the woman's hand carefully and took a shot. "You don't seem like a military type." His shot landed softly near the center on the black. "You're right. This was my husband's jacket. She took a drink. It reminds me of him. Still smells like him." Her dart landed on the board, and she drank. Her now calmer opponent made a move to step up to the mark, but the woman didn't move. "But you are right about us choosing sides. We fight to win, and it's only a matter of time until we decide who to back in this upcoming war." Her eyes locked onto the dartboard as she threw a second dart out of turn. Bullseye. She turned to face her opponent. "And whether we are right or wrong, you had better hope that we are on your side." Her eyes never left his gaze as she threw her third and final dart. Bullseye. Once again, the bar fell silent as everyone watched the nameless woman gather her things, pay her tab, and leave. End of story. There is a new legend on the horizon. Blueberry Cat has taken the T6 Patreon spot. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that I speak for everyone when I say that. I would just like to thank our T5 members, Lord Azrical, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Drexoon WRE, Blueberry Cat, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, and Leslie 517. Thank you very much.